Alright, 24 Crosstrek Molle Rack installation process. First thing we do on each side, there's a little snap clip right here. Just take a pry bar or a flathead screwdriver and just put that. Do that to the other side. Now that both the snap clips are out on the rear portion here, we want to take a 3/8 by 24 tap and tap these out. Now you can do the same thing to the other side. Okay, now we can remove the factory tie down point right here. There's a 10mm bolt behind it that we need to remove. Okay, now that we have all of those other ones undone, now we just take a Phillips screwdriver and remove this little screw. Now we can repeat the same process on the other side. Alright, next part of the process, we want to install our mounting brackets onto the Crosstrek. Remember, this front hole is tapped, and then we use a provided Phillips head to mount into this section. Use a provided button head. Start, and then the provided Phillips head. I'll make sure to get all these nice and tight. Now, if you opted for the model with the shelf, this is where we would also install our shelf slider bracket. Remember, this side being the driver's side is going to be the left, the other side is going to be the right. We'll note it may be a little easier to install it being outside the vehicle, but since we already have it in, now we can repeat the same process on the other side. For reference, buttons are going to be on the outside. Remember, we just want to make sure that whichever holes line up, we want it to be the closest one to the outside of the car on both sides. Brackets are marked left and right on the inside here, so that's not going to be vehicles left and right. That's actually going to be as if you're standing in front of the shelf. Remember, forward most facing bolt, and the rear sides will line up to whichever hole placement. Otherwise, your rack is going to sit back about 1/4 inch, which is fine, but it is pretty close to the seat. We do that so we can run the same bracket left and right. Alright, now we can begin to assemble the rest of the shelf. These are not necessarily side specific, they'll fit anyway, but I always like to have the Crosstrek pointing towards the outside of the car. Like to provide button heads. Thing is, we do not want to put the 2 side button heads in yet on the edge of the stoppers here, because when we finish the install of the main shelf with the other brackets from prior, we will use that same bolt to run through that bracket to tie it all together to make it even stronger. Alright, now that the front one is installed, now we can do the same thing to the rear. Crosstrek, and we want it facing that direction. Do the same thing on this one, just put the inner bolts in, inner button heads, the flange nuts. Leaving the 2 outer ones empty currently. Remember, leave the outer ones empty currently. Because once we install this bracket, it'll tie in to this hole right here, making this bracket extra strong. Making the shelf extra strong. Alright, you can do this a couple different ways. But the next thing you can do is install the other side of the Molle shelf mounting bracket. Remember, these are side specifics, and they just slide right into place like so. That one's locked in. Locked in. Now what we can do is slide the shelf in, make sure it's all square up in there, and finish off with the rest of the button heads. What I like to do first is get your 4 upper main ones lined up. Make sure it's slid about 50-50, how you like it. And we can finish installing the last of the bolts on the side right here. Now you can do the same thing on the back side. All right, with all the bolts in and the nuts loosely in place, just want to make sure that it's split an even amount between both sides. And then we can start to tighten all the bolts down. All right, we've got the corner ones mounted, center ones are all tight, corner ones mounted up through the bracket, like so. Oh, looks like we missed a nut. Then we got these two mounted ones in there as well. Same thing with the back side. And then she's all installed, Molle shelf installed. All right, now with all the nuts and the bolts all tight, the last thing we want to do is make sure it's sliding nice and smooth, not getting caught or bound. Remember, you can always grease the slides too. And it can be uninstalled like that. Tight. One note I will say, depending on how dry your bearings are, I may throw a little bit of grease on them to help them slide a little smoother. These ones don't seem too bad right now, but over time, now we can install our Molle Rack. Take the long T-bolt and the spacer. Get that bottom one started. And then take the other two provided T-bolts. Install those in the top. And get them nice and snug. These T-bolts allow for a quick removal of your Molle Racks. All installed. Now we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. All the T-bolts nice and tight. Installation is complete.